The following video contains spoilers. We suggest watching the episodes alone in the dark. Hello, Wolfpack. We're back, and it's time we take a look at one of the best episodes of R.L. Stine's The Haunting Hour. Yes, this is a huge fan favorite episode we're about to look at. Sorry for the delay on my reviewing this story, but I wanted to get some lesser episodes out of the way first and fix a few technical issues I've been having before hitting the big titles. This episode is supposedly the scariest tale R.L. Stine and his writers ever made, but does that fear still hold up to this very day? Well, let's waste no more time and find out. This is my review on the memorable Haunting Hour episode, Mascot. So our episode opens up, fittingly, at a basketball game, where we meet our two main characters, Willie and Drake. Willie is played by that big kid from Super 8, while Drake is played by Stuart, the creepy nerd from Terrible Love. I guess this is the story about how he lost all his friends before stalking girls. Willie and Drake are complaining about how much high school sucks, and that they should find a way to fix the lack of school spirit. Wait a minute, I'm expected to believe that two high school teenagers want to boost morale at school? Just like that, all realism is gone. 0 out of 10, thanks for watching. No, of course I wouldn't do that to you guys. I like entertaining you. Let's keep watching. So, our under-enthusiastic sports announcer then introduces us to the school mascot.
Give it up for Big Yellow.
This has been the school's robot announcer putting in a shout out to my boy Tim. I am always watching you, Tim. Smile face. We see our main villain, the school mascot Big Yellow, and good lord is he the creepiest thing I've ever seen. Big Yellow immediately dominates every scene he's in and sticks out as one of the most unique monsters we've ever seen in this show. He looks like a rejected Sesame Street Muppet that escaped from hell, but the fact that he never moves like a human being does just pushes the nightmare fuel even further for this guy. Makes me wish that they put in this much effort for the robot back on My Robot. It's so ironic that the monster that's supposed to look serious looks too goofy, while the monster that's supposed to look goofy looks super scary. We'll discuss more on our villain soon enough, but I just want to let you know that I do think he's actually scary and has a strong presence, which is a very good thing to start this episode on. Both Willie and Drake think that Big Yellow is a terrible mascot because he looks too ridiculous to take seriously, and they can't even identify what species he is. The only vague hint we get about what Big Yellow really is comes from an offhand comment Drake says when he tells Willie that the school mascot is supposedly based on an ancient species of marsupials that lived in the area the school is built on, but that's about it. Willie and Drake agree that Big Yellow needs to be replaced now by a better mascot, since he's not impressing the crowd with his lame dance moves, and the two set off on their journey to fix the school spirit while Big Yellow does a scary face. Wait, how did Big Yellow hear two random people in a huge crowd criticizing him while dancing all the way in center stage? Oh, who cares, because we then cut to the kids talking to the assistant principal the next day, asking about signing a petition to replace Big Yellow. I swear for some reason the principal looks like Tim Burton if he had all the fun sucked out of him. Speaking of celebrities, don't you just love that Willie is wearing a Marty McFly vest as if somebody at costuming department assumes that kids still wear 80s clothes?
Whoa, this is heavy.
So the kids get permission from incompetent Principal Tim Burton, but he tells them that they have to inform the previous mascot about getting replaced. But since the principal, of course, never gets involved in student affairs, he says he has no clue which student plays Big Yellow, suggesting that they ask the PE coach instead. But guess what? The PE coach is also an incompetent moron too, because he also has no idea who Big Yellow really is. Why, you ask? because he's too distracted working out to actually watch over his own students. I really wish I was making that up.
I hate to admit this, but I have no idea. See, Coach Butchko needs his workout time, so I've delegated all mascot duties to the team manager.
So after the idiot coach wastes screen time, he tells him to go ask the team manager. But guess what? He also has no clue as to who Big Yellow really is because he's too busy checking out ball sizes to notice. You know, writers, not to be too critical of this narrative, but all these people could have been compressed into one character entirely instead of split up into 3 different characters. I understand that they want to hammer it in that Big Yellow's identity is a mystery, but these moments make the adults all look incredibly stupid. There's a difference between adults being blinded by work and being just plain incompetent at their own jobs. Not to mention all this pointless dialogue comes down to your mascot is in another castle. The only thing one of these incompetent teachers does reveal is that the previous team manager also tried to fire Big Yellow a long time ago, but he completely disappeared under mysterious events. Translation, Big Yellow killed him. The assistant coach tells the kids that Big Yellow lives under the school basement so they can deliver the message to him personally. Wait a minute, so Big Yellow lives under the school basement and nobody has ever noticed or visited him for years? Does the school have Arcadia Bay High School level security? I mean, who's the moron who allows things like the school mascot squatting under the school campus? Are we sure that Big Yellow is the real villain and not the gross incompetence of the school system? But back to the story, the kids go to see Big Yellow under the school's creepy basement to tell him he's fired. Not going to lie, the episode really gets intense and dark whenever we see Big Yellow's home. The atmosphere is just so perfect at building up this villain. So after our ominous build-up, the kids try talking to Big Yellow, but since he won't open up, the two are forced to leave a note to tell him that his services are no longer required. Once Drake tries to leave the note, we get our jump scare moment where Big Yellow forcibly grabs the letter before it's fully under the door. After taking the note, the two kids wisely leave the mascot alone and get out as fast as they can. Just like that, Big Yellow realized that he could no longer keep his job as the school mascot. He was unemployed in an uncertain future, as it occurred to him that his 15 minutes of fame had ended, and he would no longer see all the smiles of the happy crowds that greeted him. Eventually, the mascot was forced to move out, but our pal Big Yellow was unable to accept his loss. It drove him over the edge. No, that's not how it ends, though wouldn't it have been hilarious if that was what actually happened? So the kids begin hosting auditions the next day to find a new mascot to represent their school. Hold on, the kids are the ones who judge auditions for the new mascot? Wouldn't this ordinarily be a job for the incompetent school staff who do this kind of stuff as their job every day? Oh, who am I kidding? I'm surprised the principal doesn't need these kids to change his diapers for him, let alone run the whole school's big decision-making. I know these kids are the ones who want the new mascot the most, but just because they successfully petitioned for a new one doesn't mean they have total control over judging who's got talent for the position. Could you imagine how much power they'd have over this?
I have absolute power. Doris, could you please send in our high school mascot? Welcome, Buffalo. As you must have heard, I've been elected student body president. As such, I can do anything I want. And I want to ride the buffalo! Yes! I am riding the buffalo! Now send in the lunch lady.
So after a long day of judging potential school mascots, the two kids are really impressed by a candidate named Wolfie, who shows off his rad skills by breakdancing. because that's what the writers think you kids are into these days. So it looks like the boys love Wolfie the most. Too bad Wolf Entertainment will now sue for copyright infringement. However, just before they make their final decision, Big Yellow shows up to audition in an attempt to save his job. You know, it really says a lot that the villain is actually trying to rationally approach the conflict first before he takes the dark path. It surprisingly gives the main villain some morality. Now, I do admit that I just love Big Yellow's terrible dance moves. It's really funny to see him get into those dated, childish jams. It shows an almost fun side to our main villain that provides some depth for him as a character. However, Willie immediately cuts off the has-been, which pisses off the mascot, as demonstrated when he gives him a close-up of his scary face. Is there a reason why Big Yellow needs to get that close to the guy's face? Maybe Willie's ability to stand up to the Jolly Green Giant is secretly turning him on and he's coming on to him? All joking aside, this is a genuinely creepy moment, since I think we'd all be a little unnerved if we saw this monster face close. So Big Yellow leaves in extreme anger since he claws the desk with real sharp claws, and gives the kids a dirty look when they decide that Wolfie is the new mascot. That night, we cut to Wolfie walking down a dark alley alone at night, still wearing his furry costume like most kids would, but he gets the strange sense that something is following him. I'm sure nothing can go wrong in this scenario. Well, nothing unusual here. Dead. The next morning, Willie wakes up but finds Wolfie's severed head in his bed. Wow, a Godfather reference in an R.L. Stine show aimed at families. Gotta say, I'm impressed, writers. Wait, so this means that not only did Big Yellow straight up murder a kid on the streets, but he also had to break into Willie's house that same night without anybody noticing to place the wolf costume's head under his sheets without waking anybody in the house. Dang, Big Yellow must have some serious ninja skills to pull that off. While at school, Willie shows Drake the severed wolf head, telling him that it's a death threat from Big Yellow. What's weird is that absolutely nobody raises questions over the fact that a kid has gone missing. We don't see how Wolfie's parents might react to their own son not coming back from school at all. We only see Willie and Drake's reactions to Wolfie's death, but it's quickly forgotten since both main characters barely knew the guy. But knowing Principal Moron, I'm sure he doesn't even know which kid Wolfie was. So, like a total moron, Willie tells Drake to not call the police since he thinks that they can handle the 8-foot, 500-pound gorilla-sized monster all on their own. Drake does the smart thing and tells Willie that he's crazy for thinking that he can take on Big Yellow. When Willie asks his BFF to help him take down the old mascot, Drake backs out when he believes that his friend is just overreacting. Now, to Willie's credit, he is right about Big Yellow being a threat to him, and that there's more to the big guy than we know. As far as he knows, Big Yellow is just a high school teen using his costume for intimidation, but it's still a pretty stupid move for him to go confront a giant at school all by himself. But Willie goes down to the school basement at night all by himself to confront Big Yellow once and for all. Give him some credit, this guy's tougher than most of us would be in a situation like this. Truly, Willie is a wicked rebel. We then get a long, scary moment where Willie explores Big Yellow's room, where we get some honestly frightening hints at how deranged Big Yellow is. The villain's room is full of trash, some screwed up broken toys, posters slashed everywhere, and a whole bunch of literal nightmare fuel. Seriously, the guy has barrels of toxic waste in his room. What does he do with it? Does he eat it? Does he use those barrels as toilets? There's just containers of nuclear waste in his room. Also, if you can believe it or not, this moment where Willie looks at a toy chicken with its head cut off apparently acts as some bizarre foreshadowing. So remember that Big Yellow sees use in this beheaded toy because it's symbolic. I also love that shredded poster in the background that says, "Be kind to others." It's like saying that even Fluttershy can't help this guy now. We also see Big Yellow has a picture of the previous team manager with a giant X crossing out his face, strongly implying that Big Yellow killed him. Once again, I'm super impressed that this villain is outright showing the audience that he has a pretty high kill count. No holding back on this child murderer, kids. So yeah, you get the idea. Big Yellow is nuts. So wannabe Marty McFly finds Big Yellow's wallet, and guess who he sees on the Mascot's ID card?
Yellow.
Oh my gosh, Big Yellow is really Big Yellow! So this actually means that Big Yellow had to walk into the student store or a government institution and convince somebody working there to take a picture of him to put on an ID card with no questions asked. I don't know whether this was meant to be funny or serious, but I thought this moment was pretty hilarious for how out of nowhere it is. Speaking of which, some of the moments in Big Yellow's room do get very funny in a weird way, as you'll all see soon enough. Willie then finds the note that he and Drake left Big Yellow torn to pieces. Apparently, he's actually surprised that the villain who threatened him multiple times would react in outrage over being fired. Willie's kind of slow that way, but then again, so is the guy who runs the entire school. Suddenly, Big Yellow arrives, forcing Willie to hide after he accidentally turns on the boombox. Yeah, Big Yellow should really upgrade to an iPhone. Willie takes cover right behind the toxic waste barrels to hide from the giant, but we get a pretty intense moment where it looks like Big Yellow is about to find the kid, but then he starts to randomly dance to his own music. I cannot even tell you if I find this moment scary or hilariously stupid. Big Yellow's dancing is just so funny and enjoyable, but it also feels creepy at how close he came to killing Willie. I actually think that Big Yellow is well aware that Willie is in his room, and he's just trolling the kid based on the upcoming climax, but I think I get what the writers were going for here. So after dance practice, Big Yellow takes his boombox and leaves, but locks Willie in his room. Now prepare yourselves, because the very next scene is just so random that you may get confused or laugh at what happens next.
You locked me in here, are you kidding me? What is that stuff?
Yes, we are actually seeing this. Big Yellow actually has a built-in death gas chamber to execute intruders who break into his house whenever he's away. There are no words to describe how absurd this is. Big Yellow actually learned some Batman-style death trap skills on the off chance to kill anyone who learned too much about his secret room that nobody but the few main characters are even aware exists. He also somehow built in this poison gas chamber in his own room all by himself with no explanation whatsoever. This moment is just so out of nowhere that I can't help but love it. In all honesty, you could completely write out this death gas chamber moment entirely and wouldn't even change a thing about the story at all. Seriously, this death gas moment just comes out of nowhere, but Willie of course escapes the trap alive and continues hunting down Big Yellow unhindered, meaning that there was no point to the death gas chamber at all to begin with. The writers really wanted to throw this scene in for no reason at all outside of showing that Big Yellow is smarter than we think and is out to kill Willie. You know, I'm not even going to count this against the episode at all because I just find it so funny that the school mascot has a homemade poison gas chamber ready in his room to deal with any potential threats. Big Yellow never speaks in this episode, so he couldn't have asked somebody to build it for him, meaning that the villain had to construct this all by himself. So you see, kids, Big Yellow may be a psychotic child murderer, but even he studies hard in school. So after Willie escapes the poison gas chamber under the school, somebody had to write that, folks. He immediately calls Drake to help back him up, but of course it's too late since his best friend apparently fell asleep with the loud TV on. I'm sure you all fell asleep with a TV on playing a loud action scene. So instead of trying to call the police or running out of the school to save himself, Willie is still bent on getting revenge against Big Yellow. Also, why are the hall lights still on? Is there school security or a night janitor working here at all? No school would just leave the lights on all night if nobody was in the building at all. If so, then the night janitor would have seen Big Yellow squatting under the school a long time ago. But you should have seen what happened to the last janitor who tried to save the students from Big Yellow. Willie then hears the sound of Big Yellow's music coming from the gym and runs off to face the villain. But we then see that Big Yellow was waiting for him this whole time. Yes, Big Yellow was sitting in the dark room expecting his enemy to show up like a supervillain would. It's pretty cool, actually. He snaps a picture to send Drake to show him that he was truthful about the mascot coming after him. Willie then goes up to him and thinks that it's just an empty costume since when he takes off the head he finds nobody inside Big Yellow at all. When Willie turns around, he shouts out for Big Yellow to come out and fight him, where we get our big reveal. Big Yellow was a real monster all along, as we see when his face moves and his body rises above our hero. Oh, so that's what that scene where Willie finds the toy chicken with its head cut off was supposed to represent. It symbolized how Big Yellow could still live without a head. That, or it was a conveniently stupid coincidence that meant nothing. So, what would have happened if Big Yellow couldn't live without his head anyway? Lucky for Big Yellow, he can survive without a head as he jumps the unsuspecting child. But enough of that scene, because we cut to the next morning where Drake wakes up and sees that Willie's been texting him all night. Realizing that he might be in trouble, Drake rushes to the school basement to see the damage, but finds that the idiot PE coach is down there checking out the break-in, where he informs the kid that the Big Yellow costume is gone. Wait, so there's a break-in at school, and instead of calling the police, the first person on the case is the idiot PE coach? Who's the moron who made that call? Drake follows a photo Willie sent him with Big Yellow in the gym and discovers that his BFF has vanished. We then go through a time travel transition poster where we check out the final basketball game of the season. We see that Drake is still searching for Willie at the b-ball game, but is it just me or does he come across as more of a worried boyfriend rather than a scared friend?
Come on, you can't be mad at me. I've said I'm sorry like 100 times. Seriously, I'm gonna call the cops on you if you don't pick up soon, so stop messing around. I'm in the gym, the usual seats. So please, please, please call me.
Calm down, guy. I know you might think that Willie's dead or something, but it's only been one day. Usually we'd worry if it was longer than that, but it helps that the last time we saw Willie, he was getting jumped by the monster, so Drake's fear isn't totally unjustified. I'm only saying that Drake is acting a little too clingy, but considering that he drugs girls into loving him later, this might explain a lot. However, Big Yellow unexpectedly makes his comeback as we hear from our bored sports announcer.
Ladies and germs, give it up for Big Yellow.
This has been a pre-recorded message from your robot announcer as I am currently away right now hunting down Tim. Tim, why don't you love me? With Big Yellow back, Drake continues desperately searching for Willie until he tries calling him on his phone again, but we get our twist ending. When Drake hears Willie's trademark ringtone, he hears the sound coming from inside Big Yellow, where it's revealed that the mascot ate him and the wolf boy as we see their half-dead bodies inside his stomach getting slowly and painfully digested. Willie has been trying to call for help, but we see that his phone battery dies, meaning that he's trapped inside the mascot's stomach until he dies. Dead. And it ends with Big Yellow getting away completely scot-free, keeping his job as school mascot while Drake does absolutely nothing but scream for Willie while the monster dances victoriously. Sweet dreams tonight, everyone. There have been rumors that Mascot was going to get a sequel episode where Drake would attempt to avenge his dead best friend by exposing Big Yellow as a real monster, but sadly the Haunting Hour was cancelled, so we'll never know if the Mascot's tale would have gone on. But given that Drake knows Big Yellow is alive, yet just lost his only connection to Willie, that might be a big struggle to overcome. Also, it's not like Drake is going to kick Big Yellow's butt since the monster is a savage giant who picks off kids like they were his snacks. Too bad, since Big Yellow totally deserves his own movie. So, how does the episode Mascot hold up? Well, surprisingly, the story holds up together very well. It's not perfect, but it is actually scary to watch. In a show that's meant to be scary, this passes with flying colors. It's a basic monster story where the villain is an evil creature hidden in plain view of our heroes, but they slowly uncover his dark secret. Unfortunately, the worst part of the story is easily how blatantly stupid the adults are. The whole plot and Big Yellow's success as a villain all occur because absolutely nobody realizes that Big Yellow is not actually a student at the high school. How does nobody realize that Big Yellow is a real monster? This sadly costs Mascot a perfect score, but since the episode is saved by Big Yellow's fear power, it is still enjoyable to watch. The greatest part of the story is naturally Big Yellow. He's an amazing monster that instantly strikes terror into our minds just with his mere appearance alone. When you look at this monster, you catch on that there's more to him than the characters give him credit for. I know I mocked him for his weird moments like his creepy bedroom, his scary faces, his ninja stealth skills that come out of nowhere, his need to show off his weird dance moves, and that random death gas chamber in his house. But this actually adds more depth to him. Big Yellow is not a generic monster, he's actually smart. Big Yellow has managed to hide under the school for years and pose as a beloved school mascot in order to blend in with human society. You could probably argue that he even killed off all the smart people at the school since the idiots running it don't pose any threat towards him. That would make sense. Big Yellow actually has a high kill count as well, since we have 3 confirmed deaths in this episode. Yes, the old school manager, Wolfie, and Willie are all confirmed to have been eaten alive by Big Yellow. No holding back on the nightmares for the children under 7 in this episode. We also see that Big Yellow can be a 3-dimensional character when he chooses to be. Not only does he do evil things like killing children, sending death threats, and building death traps under his house, but he also does quirky things like dance for fun, keeps motivational posters in his room, plays around, and takes joy in living it up in the spotlight because he seeks attention from others. Big Yellow's whole motivation for keeping his job as school mascot is not only to hide the fact that he's a real monster, but also because he refuses to give up the spotlight. Big Yellow loves attention, and he will never let anyone take it away from him. This wasn't just a monster secretly kills kids at school story, but a tale about how an entertainer would go to extreme lengths to keep their place as the top dog. Though this does raise the question on why Big Yellow doesn't just reveal himself to the world to become a real entertainer, but I guess he fears that the same government that puts idiots in charge of school systems would probably kill his fun by locking him up in some science lab for experimentation. Keep in mind, the last time the government got involved on the Haunting Hour, they locked up a sick child with a tentacle monster, so you can see why Big Yellow doesn't want to be discovered by human society. It's also unsettling that Big Yellow doesn't seem to have any weaknesses at all, because the guy can survive getting his head ripped off. There's no stopping this monster, definitely making him stronger than most Haunting Hour villains. As you can guess, Big Yellow is what saves this whole episode with how he can be both absolutely funny and incredibly dark. I can congratulate the costume department for making this terrifying thing, since the practical effects really make him stick out. There was a lot of serious effort thrown in here to make this episode as good and horrifying as possible. While I do think that Big Yellow is an awesome villain in a decent episode, this still doesn't make Mascot my favorite episode. My personal favorite episode is still My Old House. Don't get me wrong, Big Yellow is cool and creepy and all, but he's no replacement for... In short, Big Yellow is an outstanding villain. As for our two kid heroes, they were pretty interesting too. Maybe a little too into the whole school spirit motivation, especially since Willie died trying to get rid of the old mascot. But they did give great performances. Though I am a little confused over whether we were supposed to be on Willie's side 100%, since he does come across as a big jerk towards Big Yellow at times. Of course, it's not to the point where we turn against him, since Big Yellow does take things way too far, making us feel sorry for when Willie dies. So like I said, the only parts I completely hated in this episode were how dumb all the adults were, which is a cliche I really despise. Of course, Big Yellow saves the day with his complex character filling up our nightmares, overshadowing all the weaknesses of this tale. I give this episode a gold skull. It's a truly terrifying tale with an impressive villain that you will never forget, as well as some genuinely creepy moments that really stick out. It gives focus on what the audience actually wants to see, the monster, and the supernatural villain of the story does not disappoint. We have simple yet invested kid heroes who want to overcome the monster, making us root for them. But like the viewers, they're in for just as much a big shock as we are when we find out the hidden nature of our supernatural foe. Mascot is an incredible episode that I highly recommend for everyone to see. While it might not be a deep story that's too hard to follow, with some plot holes here and there, it still manages to be entertaining in its own right. Mascot has spirit, but how about you? Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, or just tune in for more videos posted here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and I hope you all sleep well tonight.